So, Kimboy, thank you for accepting our invitation today for Laravel Kenya.
Yes, thanks for having
So,
me.
so we are very thankful for you for joining us this meeting. So you can begin the session. You can begin right now the session. I think for now I can leave my co-host John Gondi to take it over from here.
Okay.
Introduce yourself, John.
Okay, thank you very much. Just a minute. Thank you very much, Elvis. I'm grateful for this chance. I believe we have a few people. Ila, thank you very much for gracing us with presence. We are hoping to learn so much from you today. We had organized a Q&A session where we will be asking you a few questions. You give us some answers. Mainly, it will be something to guide us through the development, through our development career, and maybe some questions about Laravel itself.
Okay.
So, guys, welcome. I will now welcome Taylor to introduce himself, tell us a little bit about himself for those who doesn't know him, and then you can continue from there. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah, of course, I'm Taylor. I created Laravel back in 2011, the web development framework. Eventually became, a popular web development framework in PHP, and I started working full-time on Laravel in 2015, and continue to work on Laravel now with a team of about 9 or 10 other people here at the company. Yeah, so we just continue to work on Laravel full time. We have Forge, Envoy, Vapor, Spark, Nova, and of course, lots of other packages.
So I think you have there are many packages. I see you have introduced Pulse from last week, which is it's a great movement. So can you just brief us about the Pulse a little bit?
Yeah, so Pulse, we're hoping to have a beta release of Pulse tomorrow. It is basically a application sort of profiling or health package where it shows you your slowest routes, your slowest database queries, which users are making the most database queries, which users are queuing the most jobs, information about your cache systems, all sorts of server statistics, things like that. So it's a free package you install into your production application, and it starts gathering data after every request or after a certain number of requests, and then you can view all of the information in a dashboard. And we created the package because as we're building Laravel Forge, we were having some trouble finding out some of this information really quickly. So we basically built a package to help us do that and decided to turn it into an open source package for everyone. And Tim and Jess here at Laravel worked on that package primarily over the last few months. After I wrote up sort of a plan of action, they worked on it for the last few months. And again, hopefully we'll have it out tomorrow for a beta so everyone can try it out then.
Yeah, thank you for that also. So I think for now the floor is open for anyone who has a question to ask Mr. Taylor here. So you can just raise your hand so that you can select you and you can ask your question. Yeah. So anyone who has a question can ask. So I see someone has asked here, So I see John has a question. John, you can ask.
Okay, thank you, Elvis. So, first, I wanted to suggest if you are able to turn on your video and you're asking questions, you can do it. It's good for, because I know most of us don't even know each other. We are a community, but we are a virtual community. We have not met. So when you're asking question, if possible, turn on your video. We would like to see you. I believe even China would like to see you. So my question was about database transactions. So I had this case where the system kept giving me this error. It's called timeout when trying to acquire a lock on a database row. So I realized that the issue was being caused by transaction. The transaction processing where it was not committing on time. So I just wanted you to give us a little information about how transactions work. I know this is more of a MySQL thing or maybe Postgres thing, but if you can give us some more information about that. Thankfully, I was using Forge, so I was able to roll back to a previous version. It was easy to roll back, and then I had to work on it, try to find things online, and a lot was confusing. If you can give us a little bit of information about transactions, we would appreciate.
Yeah. There's a few different ways to do transactions in Laravel. Most people probably use like DB : transaction and then pass a closure, and then the closure is executed within a transaction. Sometimes you can have locks on rows that you are working with or modifying. We have a few different ways to do locks. So we have what's called pessimistic locking. If you go to the documentation in the query builder page, there's a section on pessimistic locking. And basically you can call a shared lock method on a database query that will prevent the selected rows from being modified until your transaction is committed. There's also the lock for update method, where if you select records with lock for update, the records cannot be modified, and they also cannot even be selected by another shared lock, which is probably the case of what happens where you get some sort of timeout or you can't select rows that are currently locked during a transaction. So you definitely have to be a little bit careful. If you have rows that are read very frequently and you're doing transactions, you can run into these sorts of errors, especially if transactions take a long time. So I usually try to keep my transactions pretty fast. Otherwise, you can sort of run into these errors. For example, like you probably don't want to make like an API call within a database transaction callback because it's going to take a long time to finish. So I think the general advice is to try to keep your transactions as fast as possible. You can also look into the pessimistic locking documentation as well.
Thank you very much. So I see Victor Allen, you have your hand up. Please turn on your video and microphone and ask the question.
Hello.
Hello.
Good evening all. My name is Victor. I have a question regarding maybe three topics. So one is revolving about community. So are there any specific contributions from the Laravel community that have maybe impressed you or surprised you?
Yeah, there's always been some pretty interesting contributions. Let me think. So for example, like the Laravel scheduler was originally, the original idea was not written by me. It was written by a community member named Benjamin Cool. And he's the one that came up with the idea for how the Laravel scheduler works and all of the syntax for how it looks and things like that. Let me look at the website here. There's been lots of little contributions that are really helpful to Laravel. Lots of collection methods, string helpers, testing helpers. All of the JSON testing methods, I think, were a community contribution as well. So yeah, there's been a lot of contributions over the years that are actually really impressive and really nice. And then of course, community packages, things that aren't really necessarily included in the core of Laravel, but are still really important. So things like testing frameworks like Pest, or even tools like Laravel Livewire, or Inertia are not things super helpful and really important to the Laravel ecosystem, I think, because they're so widely used and so popular. So the community has definitely been a very big part of Laravel's success, and I think is very important. And it's a big reason why Laravel has remained pretty popular.
Okay, Mitch, I see your hand up. Also, I would like to say, if you ask a question, I would like for you to, once he's done answering, please state whether you are satisfied or you would like some more input, so that we can know when you are satisfied to move on to the next person. So Mitch, I see your hand is up. Please ask your question.
Okay, so my name is Mitchell. I've been using Laravel for about 2 years now. And I like what Laravel has done. It has helped me acquire my jobs and very bit of projects, made me earn a living. So my question was, recently I stumbled upon Filament. I don't know if you've used Filament and what's your thought about it? Is it maybe a project that Laravel would consider onboarding it or something?
I'm aware of Filament. I think it looks like a good tool and seems to be pretty popular. I think people seem to be pretty happy with it. As far as will Laravel itself, like as a company, acquire Filament or try to adopt Filament, that's not really something we've thought about so far. But I'm happy that Filament exists because it seems to make a lot of people's Laravel experience really enjoyable.
Okay, and my last question.
I need to give it a try.
Oh yeah, you can give it a try sometime and maybe give us your feedback. And about my last question was about maybe the Laracon. Laracon, I see you had a Laracon in India. What about I saw in Europe? What about Africa, Kenya, or what is the approximate or the number of people to be so that can make you guys consider coming to Africa and holding maybe a Laracon?
So all of the Laracons are actually organized by people in those countries. So for example, I'm the only person that organizes Laracon US, but I actually don't myself organize Laracon Australia or Laracon India or Laracon Europe. Teams basically approach me. They say, hey, we would like to do a conference in this location. Do you approve or deny, basically? And they give me the details of where they want to do the conference, how many people they think will attend, and we either do it or not. So usually for the first year, we let them run a conference called Laravel Live. So we have Laravel Live UK, and we're also going to be having Laravel Live in Denmark. So it's basically test conferences before graduating to a full Laracon conference. So for example, in Africa, I would basically need a team of people volunteer in Africa to say, hey, we want to run a Laracon in this city at this time. We think this many people will come. Here's our experience with running events. And we either decide to do it or not at that point. But for example, I can't really organize it myself because I don't live there or know how to do that. So it's basically just a volunteer effort for people that are in those countries.
Oh, that's actually awesome. So the last thing I'd like to say or pass across is that I love what you guys are doing. And maybe if you talk to Nuno, just tell Nuno that Nuno Maduro that he's doing a really nice job. I'd like to thank him personally because he's made our life much more easier. So the best thing that he's just done. It's awesome.
Yeah, I'll tell him.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Mitch. Do you have another question?
No, I'm actually satisfied and I'm okay.
Okay, so someone else, Taylor is here to answer your questions. Please ask away. Don't be afraid. Even if it's about your career, even if it's about something related to Laravel, or I think even PHP questions without Laravel, he may be able to help somewhere. So please ask. Okay, Mitch, I see you are. Okay, someone else. Victor Allen, please ask.
Hello again.
Hello.
So I'd like to ask a topic revolving project management. So at the moment, Laravel is so huge and also has so many contributions from the community. So I'd like to know how you're able to like decide like which features make it into the maybe roadmap that you have for each and every version that comes out every year.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's probably the most difficult thing about managing Laravel is deciding, for example, like what pull requests to either merge or not. So really big, complicated pull requests are very hard to merge because one, they take a long time to review, but also once it is merged, we have to maintain the code ourselves pretty much for the rest of time. Because often, someone contributes a feature to Laravel and maybe they change jobs or maybe they move to a new career where they're using a different language and they don't really remember what they did back when they contributed the feature. So we basically have to adopt the maintenance of the feature. So very simple pull requests are actually very easy to like merge or deny. If I feel like they're going to make development life easier for most Laravel users, then I usually merge them, especially if they're simple. If they're very like edge case or very unique or maybe particular to this person's application, but maybe not very common to lots of Laravel applications, then those are the pull requests that I usually don't merge or will encourage people just to make like a package or something that they can share on Composer. And then if the package becomes very popular, then maybe we consider merging the feature back into Laravel. But it is actually a very difficult thing because it's not fun to have to say no to pull requests. But it's something that has to be done, I guess.
Okay, thanks for that. Maybe I can ask two more questions. One is regarding testing. So will you show preference in PHP unit or even PHP test? Pest from
Pest.
Maduro also. Yeah.
Yeah, so we actually use both here at Laravel. So like for example, Laravel Vault, one of our new packages we released this summer, it uses pests. But most of our other code uses PHP unit just because pest did not exist, at the time. I really like pest a lot, actually. I think it's very convenient, has very good syntax for doing things conveniently. So it is tough for me. I think I prefer pest a little bit more, actually, just because it is simpler and has helpers that are easier to remember, easier to use. It's very like Laravel style, whereas PHP unit is a little bit more old style, I guess. But they're both good. And of course, Pest uses PHP unit under the hood. But yeah, Pest is cool. I like Pest. I think we actually, to continue, we actually need to decide, for Laravel 11 in the start of next year, which to prefer. We haven't reached a final decision on that yet, but we have a to-do list and we have an entry on the list, to decide that topic. So we'll decide soon. We'll decide soon, but we haven't decided yet.
Cool. Looking forward to that maybe in future for Laravel 11. Maybe my last question I will ask is in terms of now future developments for Laravel, are there like any specific technologies or like practices you are keeping an eye on for?
Sorry, the audio cut out. Is there any specific what?
Is there any specific like technologies or practices you are keeping an eye out for future Laravel integrations?
I mean, we're always thinking about things like scalability, performance. We're working on a new package right now for WebSocket type stuff, like real-time communication. Of course, a lot of people are really interested in AI right now, so people are building AI-related packages for Laravel to use OpenAI APIs and SDKs and things like that. We're not really working on anything like that internally at Laravel, but I think it's pretty interesting. I think a big focus for us will be to continue to make Forge and Vapor and our serverless platforms better and simpler and easier to use, as well as continue to build packages. So yeah, we have some ideas, but I think we're mainly focused on, making things as easy as possible, as simple as possible, as productive as possible, things like that.
Okay, thank you for your time, Taylor. Best of luck in the next upcoming Laravel.
Thanks.
Hello. Am I audible?
Hello.
Hey, Miss, continues.
So I have a question.
Yes.
So, over the last few evolutions of PHP, it has been receiving backlash from other engineers. I don't know if you have experienced that. Maybe because they used it back then when it was PHP 5.6, and now it's 8.3. They don't want to give it a try, given that it has changed drastically, or that there are some changes that are so awesome. They don't want to give it a try. What actually kept you going with all this coming in, with the new technologies? Why didn't you change to another technology and stuck to your Laravel and your stack of PHP, given that at that time it wasn't that good?
So when I originally started writing Laravel, I chose PHP. This was like 2010. I chose PHP, mainly because it was very easy to host and deploy, and very easy to learn. And then once Laravel became popular, of course, I stayed with PHP because it's, now it's become like my entire career of maintaining Laravel. We've thought about writing tools in other languages before. It would just be a very big project for us, I think, because now Laravel has so many packages and the ecosystem is so large. For example, to recreate Laravel like in JavaScript or something like that, for example, we'd have to recreate the entire framework, but then we'd also have to recreate Nova, Cashier, Spark, Horizon, all these Socialite, all these other packages, Telescope, Pulse, that it would just take so many years, I think, for us to actually to do that. So I think for myself, I am pretty much, committed to PHP at this point. For a new web developer, of course, I think PHP is still a great place to build web applications, mainly because Laravel's ecosystem is so vast and there's so many resources, and it's hard to create that same productive full stack web experience in other languages right now, because you have to kind of patch together a bunch of different packages and it's hard to do. So I think Laravel is still the most productive ecosystem for full stack web development. And That's what I'm stuck with for now.
Yeah, that's actually an awesome answer. And my last question is, Laravel is an open source project, right? How do you gain, let's say, how do you make money from an open source project until being able to buy even a supercar for yourself? How?
Yeah, so I did not make any money from Laravel from 2011 until probably 2014. I didn't really make any money from the framework. The only time I started being able to gain revenue from Laravel was when I built Laravel Forge, that people subscribed to deploy their Laravel projects. And then after that, of course, I developed Envoy and Laravel Vapor and Spark and Nova. But Laravel, as far as Laravel itself, it actually still does not make, it doesn't receive a lot of donations or anything like that. So Laravel itself does not make any money. It's mainly the other businesses that I built around Laravel. So as far as making money on pure open source work, I don't know how to do that. I've never really accomplished that. I've only built businesses, around it.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. So I see we have Joe, but there was a question that was asked on the chat. So Stella, what do you consider to be the most revolutionary or significant features of Laravel? And how do you decide which features to prioritize to prioritize for development? That was asked by Mike.
Some of my favorite features are, of course, like Eloquent. The ORM, I think, is one of the most important parts of Laravel and one of the most easy to use parts, hopefully. I think the queue system is very good in Laravel. The scheduler, the notification. As far as what to prioritize, what to work on, a lot of what we work on the framework is based on things we learn as we're building Laravel Forge, as we're building Laravel Nova, Spark, Vapor. We see, pain points in the framework or things that aren't working so great, and we decide to improve those things based on our experience. So that's one way we prioritize what we need to work on. And then the other way is through sort of community feedback and demand. So either through Twitter or GitHub or whatever, we see features people are asking for again and again and again, and we decide to prioritize them that way. So those are basically the two ways that we decide what to work on and how to prioritize things.
Okay, Mike, I believe your question was answered. Are you okay with that? Then, Joe, I see you raised your hand. Please ask your question.
Hi, guys. Hi, Kayla. So, I was watching your documentary, the one for Laravel Origins, and I like how you started Laravel as a personal project, and now it's this big thing. And I would like to say thank you because it's done a lot for us. So my question is, I've built with Laravel and I've used Laravel and Spatty. What is your take on Laravel Spatty? How do you like it and things like that? Because I find it really helpful and I think they have very, very good products.
Spotseed, like the company that makes all of the packages, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're they've been so helpful, in Laravel's story, and they've built so many cool things. Yeah, I don't know, dozens and dozens of things. So I'm very thankful, to Spotsy and all of the work they've done. I think they've been a very important part of Laravel's history and in our story, and they've built so many useful packages for the community that so many people have joined. So I'm friends with the Spot C. I talk to Frake pretty regularly about things we're working on or things we have upcoming. So yeah, overall, just very happy, very thankful that they use Laravel and have built so many great things for the framework.
Thank you. You've answered my question.
Okay, so I see Kennedy has raised his hand, but I also see some questions here from Mesha Kiegon. He had asked, how do you see Laravel evolving in the next few years, both in terms of features and ecosystem, and what were the most significant challenges you faced in the evolution of Laravel, and how did you overcome them?
So right now with Laravel, we're trying to focus on simplicity. For Laravel 11, we're trying to make things even simpler with the application structure, with the application skeleton, so that new people to the framework can understand it more quickly, can get productive really quickly. So that's our focus right now. Some of the biggest challenges, of course, there's technical challenges, and then there's sort of open source development challenges. So we have lots of technical challenges building things like the ORM and the database layer and keeping things compatible with lots of different databases and things like this becomes, a technical challenge. But when you're building open source, you also have a lot of other challenges in terms of dealing with feedback, positive feedback, negative feedback, not getting discouraged, things like that when people maybe don't like a certain feature or don't like how things work. So I just try to stay focused, on making Laravel as good as we can possibly make it and listening to community feedback and hopefully building a really great product and not getting if we make a few mistakes here and there, which we do, we just try to improve and learn from them and make things better in the future. But thankfully we have a great team here, and they help a lot. It's much easier than when it was just I was the only developer at Laravel. That was actually pretty challenging and it was a lot of work. But thankfully the team is really great and we are able to get a lot of good things done.
Okay, thank you. Kennedy Mutisia, I see you have your hand. Please ask away.
All right, thank you. Good to meet you, Taylor. By the way, you have a very nice face. So let me jump right to my first question. I think a year ago, there was a project that you teased on Twitter. I believe it was called BIP. Is that project still on track or will it ever get released?
I don't know if it will get released. So it was a project I was working on to open source and maybe demonstrate how I build Laravel projects. I basically finished it. I just wasn't super happy or excited about it anymore. I don't know if I maybe had been working on it for too long and then kind of lost interest or wasn't as excited about it anymore, but I would like to revisit it someday. I don't think hope is totally lost, but we've just had other priorities here at Laravel, working on other packages and other things we have going on, like Laravel 11, Laravel Pulse, Volt, Folio, things like that, that I really haven't had time to go back and work on it much lately, but maybe someday,
Yeah, definitely. I was really looking forward to that. All right.
Okay.
My next question. I did read your book. I believe it was called Laravel from Apprentice to Artisan. I think a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You're planning to write a book in future, at least that we can pick your
Yeah,
more
I would
your
really,
thought process.
I would really like to do that in the future. I started to write a table of contents and some ideas for a sequel to that book. So I have a rough idea of what I would put in it, but if I can find the time to finish the book, I think that would be a really a good thing to do. But again, we just have stayed pretty busy with coding, so I haven't really had time to revisit writing the book. But maybe in the future, I would like to do that.
Mhm. All right. Looking forward to that. If you get some time to write it. And then on to my last question. Could you share with us some common mistakes or anti-patterns that you've observed Laravel developers do and that generally you can say we should avoid?
Well, I'm not really sure. I think some people try to make their code a bit too complicated or too, or worry about things like scalability or things like that before their application is actually, popular or has those needs. And sometimes that can make the code very complicated and hard to follow. So I think that's one mistake maybe some people make. Other than that, I'm not sure. We try to make things kind of as easy as possible and address those concerns. So hopefully people aren't making too many mistakes. But I would just say keep your code as simple as possible, easy to change. Try to write good tests, things like that.
Mhm. All right. Thank you very much. And actually, before I hand over to the next person, I think I have another question. So I consume a lot of your products from Forge, Vapor, and some other packages on the ecosystem. Would you consider having at least power purchasing parity for those products, especially for us who are in Africa or in countries that cannot match the dollar?
Yeah, we have definitely considered that. It's easier to do for us on things like Paddle, which we currently use Stripe. But if you email me, I can always issue a coupon or a discount code or something like that. That's really the easiest way for us to handle that situation at the moment. But I think it's a great idea, but right now, if you just email me, we can do discount codes and we do it pretty often, actually. And also for educational use, for people that are students or university students, you can also get student discount codes as well.
All right. Thank you very much, Taylor. And it was a pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks. Thank you. I can probably take like one or two more questions before I need to go.
Thank you. I see there were some questions here that were asked. If I ask 3 questions together, would you consider that one question?
Yeah, sure. Sure.
1, does Laravel contribute to changes in the core PHP language? And now, a while ago, you said Laravel was onboarding to Tailwind. Does that mean we do away with Bootstrap or it's a personal preference?
Okay, so the first question, so one of our team members, Nuno, actually, who wrote Pest, has made a few attempted contributions to PHP itself. He tried to contribute multi-line short closures to the language, but I think that was ultimately rejected. I can't remember if he's had any other contributions to the language. It is a bit difficult actually to contribute to PHP because you must go through the entire voting process and get your contribution voted on and approved by a certain number of people. So yeah, we have tried in the past, and we may try again in the future. The second question regarding Tailwind, it's more of a personal preference, I think. I find Tailwind a little bit easier to use for custom designs. Bootstrap is easier to use for, pre-made user interface components. Although, I think people are trying to build similar things to Bootstrap and Tailwind as well. So, but of course, people are free to use Bootstrap in their own Laravel projects, but we actually do not use Bootstrap here at Laravel at any of our projects. So we are not up to date on, how to maintain that. So we primarily use Tailwind here.
Okay, thank you. So I see Lewis, you have your hand up. Please ask your question.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, my name is Lewis, and I've done 2 years with Laravel. Right into my question. My question is, I've been using Breeze for like a year or so for authentication, and recently this month, they've done an update whereby if I want to use Breeze and Livewire, I will have to use Volt. And what's your thought on that? On like, sounds like it's forcing people to use Volt, and I'm wondering what will happen to my previous projects that I've already used Breeze when it comes to time to upgrade the Breeze package.
So you should have no problem upgrading Breeze. Breeze, you really only use Breeze at the very beginning of your project, and it installs all of the files into your project, and then you actually do not need Breeze anymore. You can delete it from your composer.json file. Once the files are in your project, there's nothing left for Breeze to do, and you can just remove the entire dependency, actually. So for new projects, it is true that the login and registration screens use Volt, but the rest of your application is not actually required to use Volt style Livewire components. You could just use traditional Livewire component classes, and only the login screen and registration screen and the Breeze page would use Volt, but everything else could be, a normal Livewire component, and that's fine, because when you use Volt, you're not required for every component to be a Volt component, or every page to use Volt. You can have both in the same application, and it actually does not matter, and they will both work side by side.
Thank you very much. You've answered very well. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I have two more questions.
Sure.
So these questions were asked on chat. One of them you can answer yes or no question to save time. So one is, are you guys planning to make it on making Laravel queuing system independent of softwares like Supervisor? That you can answer yes or no. Then the other one is
Working on that currently.
Oh, working on that.
No, we're not working on that currently.
Okay. So the other question is your opinion on Soul plus Laravel.
What was it? Soul?
Soul. You can look on the
Oh,
chat.
Swool. Yeah,
Soul.
Swool. Yeah, I think it's pretty cool, actually. So it can make your Laravel application very fast. If you need really high level of performance, you can use Swool or Roadrunner, actually, to accomplish kind of the same thing. One of the cool things about Swool is that it lets you run concurrent code in PHP, so you can run, basically asynchronous code, or two pieces of code at the same time, which is very different than normal PHP. So I think Swool is a very interesting project, and of course it's supported by Laravel Octane. I have not personally used it in production because we just don't have any applications. Like even Laravel Forge does not need this level of performance or scalability. So we just haven't used it, but I know a lot of people are using it with pretty good success. So I think it's an important project for PHP.
Okay, so one last question before we release you. So this is quite a bit important. We also do payment here, and in most cases, let's say for example, when we use Spark, we have support for Stripe only, and in most cases, when you try to register, Stripe is not supported in Africa, in most countries in Africa. So is Spark extensible? And currently it only supports Stripe. Definitely would love it to be very customizable so that it can support local payment gateways and maybe APIs.
So I think we would like to work on that, making Spark basically allow different plugins of different payment gateways. It is a little bit of a difficult situation to solve because each payment gateway tends to be very unique in how they work and have very different APIs and things. But I think if we could settle on a common interface in Spark, that we could allow something like this. So we'll see. We're currently working on an update for Spark Paddle at the moment, but after that, we may be able to explore this as a possibility.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe we have received a lot of answers to the questions that we had, and we are also very happy to just interact with you and learn from the creator of a project that has inspired this community to come together. So thank you very much. I would like to ask one member of our community to give a vote of thanks and say his thanks. So yeah, anyone, welcome, please.
Yeah, okay. So, okay, thank you for today's session. We've had a great session today. So I think next we'll arrange for a bit longer session than today's session. Yeah, so I think everyone is happy and is satisfied with today's session.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Yeah, we are very pleased to have you on this show, and I'm sure everybody is excited to meet you and ask the questions. So I think next time we'll just plan for a longer session, and also we'll try to that Laravel Live. We'll try to implement it here on Africa so that you can keep in touch. If it goes through well, I think we can arrange now the Laracon Africa or something like that.
Yeah,
So
I hope
thank
so.
you. Thank you. Have a nice day. So
All
I
right,
think
thank
we
you.
can close
Thank you,
the
everyone.
session. Okay, thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Goodbye.
Okay, so guys, that was it. Kemboy Elvis, thank you very much for organizing this. I personally am very happy. I believe the others too are happy. So we would like to thank you very much for organizing this. That was a good initiative. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm pleased. So I think we'll arrange a longer session next time. Pia tutajaribu Laravel Live. So I think everybody can participate. Yeah. If you have anything that you want to let me to tell him, so I think you can just text me on the group or anywhere so that you can keep in touch. So I think you can keep in touch and we can continue our sessions. I think this will be our last session, or John?
What? Ask again, please.
I was asking if this is our last session, if this will be our last session for this year, as you can.
Oh, okay. So unless there is something, but before we close the year, I think I can give a talk on project management. But that will depend with the community. How do they feel? Should we just break out? I know most of you will be going back to the village. I can't wait to go myself. So, and I know sometimes there is network challenges. So, what do you think? I think we have most of the members here. I can create a quick poll, and then we see whether this should be the last one. Just before you leave, let's do it. So, just a minute.
Okay, yeah, okay. So I think you will send me for the recording so that I can upload it. Yeah. Okay.
So, I have pushed the poll out there. You should. So yeah, should this be our last session? So I've already received some. While we wait for the results, Mitch, I see you have your hand up. Please continue.
You raised a very good point on the payment that we do, since our currency doesn't match the dollar. Now, the way Mr. Taylor said, we email him, do we do that personally, or we can put it as maybe a community so that the community can be treated, can be given maybe a coupon for everyone? I don't know, or it's a personal thing that you need to inbox him directly and get it personally, a coupon personal. Sijui umepata swali.
Yeah, I believe you're asking whether we should have our organizer Kiboy email him and then we get a coupon for the community, or should we email when need arises, we email him personally?
Yeah.
So Elvis, what do you think?
So I think we can email him for the community so that if anyone needs to use the coupon, it will be available. Yeah.
Okay.
So, okay, for which sites? I think it was for the Vault and which.
Is
Can
it
you
the
just highlight for the Forge?
Forge and maybe because he has said that there's a student package, and some of us, are still students. Students, we can be given the free trial. Or I don't
Okay.
know how it will be.
So I think I'll just ask for what are the requirements for the student coupon so that I'll just tell you on the group. Yeah. So I think we have answered your question.
Yeah, but don't restrict to students only, and not only for maybe other products like Nova and something like that.
Yeah, before his email, I'd request maybe you guys go through all the products and maybe just list them first and know that which ones are being paid for, and those ones that are those ones that we can't afford or are quite high.